Hi, welcome to Sunday Stitch. I'm Jen, and this Sunday I'm taking on double-sided knitting. Double-sided knitting is the kind of thing that it intimidates a lot of knitters. Some will try it and give it up, and some just won't try it at all. And that's a shame because it's a lot easier than you might think. This is a very simple piece of double-sided knitting, and I've put it together because I thought it would be a great beginner project. Actually, that's a lie. I do this kind of thing. I use this to clean my dirty dishes. I'll get to that in a minute. But it is a really great beginner project. Double-sided knitting is knitting that will look like stockinette, laying nice and flat. Notice there are no ribs or anything. Lays nice and flat, and it looks like stockinette on both sides. It also looks like a negative image on one side versus the other. Negative image being that every stitch that's, say, green on this side is going to be pink on this side. And every stitch that's pink on this side will be green on the opposite side. This one, quite simple. This one, only slightly more complicated. Just to give you an idea of how you can really play with color with this technique. Now, let's talk, before we get started, let's talk about the edges. Cast on, sides, bind off. There are tons of ways to do this in double-sided knitting, and I guarantee you they are all neater and cleaner than the one I'm using right here. These are my pot scrubbers. What I use these for are to clean my dirty dishes and my pots. I make one side in mostly cotton. That's what the green is. It's a nice soft absorbent cotton to soak up water and soap. And the other side I make with the scratchiest, roughest acrylic I can lay my hands on. This may look soft and squishy, but this pink, let me tell you, she's got some bite on her. This is some pretty scratchy yarn. So, knowing that it's something I clean dirty dishes with, I use a very simple cast on and edge treatment and bind off. But if after you've mastered this, I just want to mention that there are other techniques out there so that you can do a cast on, edges, and bind off and not have this multicolor edge. You could make this so that the green extended from edge to edge, top to bottom, or the pink from side to side, and the other colors would not show through on these edges if you used a different technique. But I think since we're learning, this is intended to just teach a beginner how to do double-sided knitting, let's not make it too complicated. Let's just learn the basics and then clean some dirty dishes. So put that aside. I'm going to make this same piece in this video, but I'm going to use these two colors. This is my cotton and this is my acrylic. Now you don't have to use cotton and acrylic, of course, but you do have to use two colors, and they have to be the same thickness. They have to be the same weight. In my case, I'm using worsted. So for my little scrubbers, I start with a cast on of 15, holding both strands together, and that's important. 15 stitches, and you can cast on any way you like. That's not important. I like to use the long tail cast on. So that counts as 1, of course. And now I need 14 more. Cast on loose. Of course, I'm using a size 8 needle and double thickness yarn, so it does feel very thick and bulky, but that only happens on the cast on. Cast on loose, Jen. Don't forget. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, and 15. Now, the first stitch of every row, for this type of edge, the first stitch is always slipped with the working yarn held to the front. Slip it purlwise with the working yarn in the front. The next stitch is going to be a knit, so if you pull up, over, and between. Now, I'm going to treat each one of these stitches that I cast on as a pair. That means don't look at these two loops as two stitches. Look at them as two parts of a set. I'm going to make this orange yarn my first side. This will be my first stitch, and I'm going to knit it just like that with the orange yarn. Then bring both strands to the front, both of them, and purl the yellow loop with the yellow yarn like that. Notice how then you bring both strands to the back, and knit the orange loop, come here, but only knit it with the orange strand. And then both strands move to the front for your purl stitch, but only make the purl with the yellow. Now in the first row, after you're cast on, you will have to do this. Like if your orange isn't sitting in front, you'll have to grab it, move it over. I'm sure you've noticed me doing that. That's only what happens on the first row. You move the working yarns together, but you only stitch with one at a time. Let's see, come here. Now, of course, you don't have to do this continental. You can do it right-handed, theoretically. Let's see if I can make it work right-handed. Holding both strands together, knit with the orange, pull them to the front, purl with the yellow. I'm going to work all the way to the end until I have one set left and do something special at the very end. But in your first row, just be consistent. Color on like color, yellow on yellow, orange on orange, or of course whatever colors you're using. I'm doing pretty good with this throwing the yarn, huh? Okay. Let's go back to continental. As you work this, don't worry so much in the beginning, but as you go through, I want you to start concentrating on keeping these strands in the same position and don't twist them. Don't twist them any more than you have to. Bring them forward and purl with the yellow. Push them back, knit with the orange. Oop. Gotta get my orange in front. Like I said, that only happens on the very first row. There we go. One more set. And a purl. Now, there we go. This last two, you treat them as one stitch. Knit into both, like a knit two together where you grab both strands. Take both strands and knit. And that forms your nice edge right there. So we slipped two together at the beginning and we knit two together at the end, holding both strands together. The 13 stitches in the middle, we knit orange with orange and purled yellow with yellow. That's row 1. When you turn it around, I know it's a little hard to see in the beginning, but now these yellows are knit stitches and the oranges are purls. So again, we're going to slip this first stitch, remember? Slip it purlwise, working yarn in the front. And pull it up and over to the back because that first stitch needs to be knitted. Notice the first stitch now is yellow and you knit it, which means when you get to the orange, get that out of the way, you have to purl it. So in all double-sided knitting, you always knit the knits and purl the purls. And if you are keeping the colors the same, if you're working with a nice solid section, like here on the bottom, you put like color on like color. So I have a orange stitch and I purl it with orange. I have a yellow stitch and I knit it with yellow. Like that. Now, let's see. I want to make one incorrectly to show you what happens if you let your stitches get twisted. Let's see if I can do that. Now, normally I would pick up my yellow yarn and it would look like that as I make the stitch. But if I get these two strands twisted around and out of position, come on, cooperate. Then as I make my knit stitch, the orange gets trapped like that and it will show through on the front where you don't want it to. And that's why it's very important to keep your strands from getting too twisted up. You want it to look like that. Notice how in this case when I knit the yellow, the orange's strand is in the back. And when I purl the orange like that, the yellow strand is trapped to the front of it. Okay. I won't harp. I'm just going to finish this second row over to the end, do that special knit two together with both strands at the end. And then every other solid color row will be just like this. You won't have to do anything different until you're ready to try some color work. Let me go back to the right-handed just to show that a little bit more. Okay. Okay. Knit with the yellow, purl with the orange, and here I am with 2 loops left. Remember, I'm going to treat them like I'm going to treat them like I knit 2 together, so put it in the back. And then, holding both strands, take the 2 strands together, working 2 strands, and knit them both together, and that makes your edge. And like that. Now, that's 2 rows, and for my little pot scrubber here, I have 12 rows that are just plain, no color changes, and I'm going to bang out those next 10 rows and get to 12. And then for the next video, I'll be working this row where we do our first color changes. And I'll meet you there.